There are two events that are happening or have just happened very close to each other that are very much interconnected that nobody's talking about. So if you're following New York City, Zohran Mamdani just got elected as mayor of the city. The largest city in the United States is now adopting a form of socialism. Mamdani is a self-proclaimed democratic socialist. The cohorts that have voted for Mamdani are predominantly young people and women. My reading to this is that these cohorts are looking around and they're not feeling like the current state of things is taking care of them, that they're protected or they are being served in the way they expected to be served by the current system, which in this case is socialism. Peter Thiel talked about this in an email from about 5 years ago where he had concerns about a socialist movement starting to rise up in the United States. I think he has been proven correct, but I think the bigger part of it is the truth, which is the current system has left behind a lot of people and they are turning to something else. Within that lens is that there is a completely different movement happening on the opposite side of the spectrum, which is the maxi-capitalist, let's say, spectrum. So companies like Tesla, companies like Nvidia, that are going all in the creation of artificial intelligence systems, both in the digital world and in the physical world. Tomorrow on Thursday, Tesla is having their annual shareholder meeting where they're not just going to vote on a comp package for Elon Musk that will be valued at $1 trillion just for Elon if the company hits all the different thresholds for growing the company. But on that same meeting, Elon Musk and Tesla are going to talk about what's called sustainable abundance. And what I find deeply fascinating about this is that a sustainable abundance future is very much a socialist dream or even a communist dream in a sense. I want you to listen to two clips real quick. One from the Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk, if you haven't seen this already. Elon and Joe talk about what this sustainable abundance future could look like and what it means.
The funniest thing is, even though like the socialists and the Marxists are in opposition to a lot of your ideas, but if this gets implemented and you really can achieve universal high income, that's the greatest socialist solution of all time. Like literally, no one will have to work.
Correct. Like I said, so there is a benign scenario here, which I think probably people will be happy with if as long as we achieve it, which is sustainable abundance, which is if everyone can have if you ask people like what's the future that you want, right. I think a future where we haven't destroyed nature, like we have the national parks, we have the Amazon rainforest still there. We haven't paved the rainforest. Like the natural beauty is still there, but people have, nonetheless, everyone has abundance. Everyone has excellent medical care. Everyone has whatever goods and services they want.
And we just essentially
it kind of sounds like heaven.
It sounds like it is like the ideal socialist utopia, and this idea that the only thing you should be doing with your time is working in order to pay your bills and feed yourself sounds kind of archaic considering the kind of technology that's at play. Yeah. Like a world where that's not your concern at all anymore. Everybody has money for food. Everybody has abundance. Everybody has electronics in their home. Everybody essentially has a high income. Now you can kind of do whatever you want. And your day can now be exploring your interests, doing things that you actually enjoy doing. Your purpose just has to shift. So instead of, I'm a hard worker and this is what I do and that's how I define myself. No, now you can fucking golf all day. You can, whatever it is that you enjoy doing can now be your main pursuit. Yeah. Well, that sounds crazy good.
Yeah, that's the benign scenario that we should be aiming for.
The best ending to the movie is actually pretty good.
And now I want you to listen to a clip from a conversation that I had with Matt Smith and James Dalma a couple years ago, talking about the same exact dynamic that we were going to face here in the coming years.
I do wonder sometimes if, my investing hobby really in the end does turn out to be a meaningless hobby because money doesn't matter anymore.
If everyone's a millionaire and you can get anything you want, then only truly scarce things would actually need to be paid for, some geographic locations or something like that.
Well, if everything costs nothing, then there's no upside to being a millionaire, right?
Yeah. What if capitalism inadvertently causes communism? Everything's free and it's just utopia.
That would be ironic. Now, isn't that the craziest coincidence of all time that we have this rise in socialistic principles in the country at the same time that we have a technology that could very well bring a form of universal basic income. Elon calls it universal high income, but a way for society, for all of us to reap the benefits from a monetary perspective and a product and service perspective from a collective. This type of rhetoric has been going on in the United States for a long time. Kind of started with Bernie Sanders, but then you had people like AOC, now you have people like Mamdani, and it does seem like the Democrat Party is very much embracing socialist type ideas that are looking to redistribute the wealth, redistribute individuals' ability to win in the United States, or to at least take part of the economy in a much better way versus going to college, and having $100,000 in debt, and then graduating and going into economy that is not even hiring you because there's going to be artificial intelligence systems doing that job that you went in debt for. I can actually speak from experience on this because that was exactly my situation. I went to college, I went to Penn State University, I got a mathematics degree. I graduated in 2009, and it was in the middle of the financial crisis. I had $100,000 in debt. My net worth was literally negative six figures. But the way I was able to get myself out of that hole was through capitalism. I was able to invest my money in businesses that only capitalism would have allowed to exist. And those businesses performed really well over time. And I was able to use that capital to buy other things that also grew over time as the pie increased. And then I went from a negative 6-digit net worth to a positive, let's call it 7-digit plus. And a lot of luck. I was very lucky that my parents came to the United States from Spain after they escaped the Iranian Revolution in 1979. I was very fortunate to be exposed to a father that worked his ass off all the time, to a mother that worked her ass off all the time, to a lot of adversity that shaped me into who I am today. But I also put in a lot of work to capitalize on those opportunities so that I'm not left behind. I think the sad state of the country right now in the United States is that there are too many people that have been sold a false dream. And they are looking to the government, they are looking for officials, to the state, to solve those problems. Instead of being maybe more introspective and saying, what can I do? What are the steps that I can take to make the future a better place, not just for myself, but for the country? But regardless, that's the state that we're in. It's very obvious that's the state that we're in, truly. That's the state that we're in, that we have pockets in the country that want to turn to the state to protect them. But the real fascinating part here with the artificial intelligence boom, with this sustainable abundance thing that Tesla's trying to put in place, is that could be the ultimate way for capitalism to actually prove that it is the superior system. If you look at socialism holistically, one of the things that socialism does a really poor job of is to create incentives for entrepreneurs and for individuals to take the risk to go through blood, sweat, and tears to build a thing that could make them wealthy, that could give them a 10x or a 100x on their personal wealth. Socialism caps people's ability to really go above and beyond to make something gigantic, because the second you start outperforming the average, you get taxed a lot more heavily, which removes the incentive for people to work hard. This is why we have countless examples of countries that fail under a socialist/communist type system, because for progress to exist, you need humans to take risk, and humans need incentives to take risks. Almost every situation where somebody is very wealthy, that have made a lot of money in the capitalistic system, is because they've put forth a ton of risk and a ton of effort and a ton of pain to get to that level. You will have pockets of those very powerful, very rich people that are byproducts of, say, previous generations, basically Nepo babies, let's call them, through nepotism. They get handed a bunch of money. They're not given the tools to really learn how to go through that pain and through all those challenges to build something better for society and for themselves. And instead, they just sit on a bunch of money, just kind of enjoying life and very much playing to the stereotype, right? And that becomes a caricature for the disillusioned and for politicians to point at and be like, hey, see, I told you, see, this is why capitalism sucks. Because a small subset of very wealthy people are not deploying their capital efficiently. That's really ultimately what's happening, is people are just sitting on their money doing nothing, or worse yet, using their leverage, using their capital at the detriment, not just of themselves, but of society. But there's a very unique situation now. But now the very interesting thing is that capitalism can turn its head around and be like, hey, you remember when driving used to be a thing that killed 50,000 people a year and 2 million people got injured in the United States, or whatever the number is, more than 1 million people, and you had to be stuck on traffic all the time, which stressed you the hell out. You had to pay for gas, you had to pay for maintenance, you had to pay for oil change, you had to get ripped off at a dealership. Well, guess what? Because of artificial intelligence and self-driving vehicles, now to get from point A to point B, it's going to be dirt cheap. It's going to be, let's say, half to a tenth of what you usually would have paid anyway for any car you could have ever owned. You're still potentially going to own that self-driving car for yourself, or be in a pool of a subscription-based thing where you can take advantage of this transportation. But all of a sudden, the money you would have paid to get around plummets dramatically. And that money can then be used for something else, for food, for housing, for whatever else. Maybe to invest in the stock market, maybe to start a new business. That's a gigantic deflationary force for a lot of people. Human or robots, when they come to fruition, pay $200 a month, $500 a month, whatever the number is, for a robot to basically do whatever you need it to do. Do your chores, clean your house, do the laundry, vacuum your house, do surveillance in your home. Maybe when you're away, you want something to walk around and make sure everything's okay. Maybe you put that robot in your self-driving car and it can go do grocery shopping for you. Maybe your HOA or your community spends 1 or 2% of its budget to hire human or robots that just go all over the community, and they just do everything for their community members, right? They do all the landscaping. They help carry things around from point A to point B. They do all the cleaning and polishing of the community. They help with repairs of the outside of the home. They help throw up new structures. And what does that do? That dramatically lowers the cost to build things and to provide things. It's another gigantic deflationary force. And down the list we go. But the huge problem that this transition could face, which could very much supercharge the socialist movement in the United States, is the potential disruption to labor that's inevitable from these AI systems without something on the other side that can help absorb the people that will inevitably lose their jobs. The reality is for these types of deflationary forces to kick in, to where a lot of people can now afford transportation, and by default that means drivers and people that drive for a living will no longer be market competitive. It wouldn't make any sense to pay for somebody in this scenario to drive you from point A to point B for more than a car that you just have to yourself, that you don't have to drive in, and it's consistent every time. It has your music, it has your AC, it's comfortable, it's way safer because this self-driving system can drive itself and it can pay attention everywhere, and it's cheaper. It's just a better product. But will those drivers have an economy strong enough where they can actually go and find something to do from a work perspective that helps them pay the bills and helps them pay for this new transportation reality that is as good or better than what was disrupted before? Meaning, will this new reality, this new job, or this new thing that they do where they have a way to live and live their life, is that going to be better than them driving for a living and then living their life? Same thing for factory workers once human and robots go in and scale. Same thing for warehouse workers once human and robots go in at scale. If our current system cannot properly absorb for those types of disruptions that are inevitable from this transition that Elon Musk himself said on the Joe Rogan podcast, then the inevitable outcome is that the socialist movement will only get bigger, because then the wealth gap is going to increase as these systems start to get adopted in the wild. Because the only people that will be able to benefit from these systems in that reality are the ones with capital, are the ones with money to be able to afford investing in these companies, buying these robots, the robots on wheels, whatever we want to call them. And then the people that can't afford those things by default, their jobs are probably going to get displaced. And then there's going to be an open question of, okay, are those folks going to be able to adapt to this new reality where the old jobs they had no longer exist? And the new jobs might require a skill set that they perhaps won't be able to offer. And instead, a robot or an AI system or whatever is there to be able to do that same exact job faster, cheaper, safer, higher quality, etc. If that's the reality, this is just the beginning of socialism. And at that point, I think it's going to be inevitable for something like a universal basic income to have to be implemented in the United States to not only lower the temperature and prevent potential violence, potential riots from people being so upset about this new system that we're inevitably going into, but then more importantly, to materially improve the quality of life of the average American. That's going to be the key question here. What are the policies going to be that are going to materially improve the average quality of life for the average American? And it's a battle between capitalism at the maximum and a socialism system that's starting to rise because of the failings that the capitalistic system has had. I think this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of this conversation. I think we've crossed the chasm. We've crossed the threshold. We've crossed this sort of like line that says, okay, we're never going back to where we were. We're just not. So which way are we going to go? Are we going to go the capitalism won because of automation, or socialism won because capitalism wasn't able to deliver it on its promise long term? Or will there be some sort of hybrid? Or will there be a new thing? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, because this is sort of, I think, the conversation of our time. And if you want to follow these types of changes closely, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I encourage you to go to my website, farzad.fm, to learn more about the transition to this new world. And if you're interested, become a member and join myself and my community on weekly exclusive discussions, access to a private Discord server, exclusive newsletters and content, and so much more. It's a very difficult conversation to have, and one that we have to have. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative and helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.